I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire, there are two ways to exit the chambers. To my left, you exit through the double doors, turn left, walk down one flight of stairs, and outside of the building. Or perhaps the best way is to exit the door at the rear of the chambers. In either case, once you're outside of the building, please walk a safe distance away from the building. Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard, absent. Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley, absent. Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sandra Gruber.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
Richard Suzak is here.
Commissioners DeGray and Gruber will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Approval of minutes. First one is September 7th, 2017.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for September 7th, 2017.
Second.
Motion's made second. Any additions, errors, or omissions?
I gave some over to the planning staff, just some grammatical stuff.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to let you know.
Well, we had suggested if you just have grammatical changes or spelling errors or things like that, you can just circle them and give them to us, and we'll take care of them for you.
Okay.
Okay.
I have some changes that aren't grammatical.
Yes.
On page 11, there is the resolution that's listed. It's the second whereas clause shows the public hearing was held on October 7th. That's September 7th. So that needs to be changed just in the minutes that it reflects September 7th. And then on page 20, we did a site plan review, and there is no resolution listed in here under the votes and right before authorization for administrative approval, so that resolution isn't there, and I was just, since it's not there, I wanted to be able to take a look at that, so. And that's it. The rest I have is grammatical errors, which I can throw your way, so thank you.
I had one other comment, which was there was one where Commissioner Ballard went home, and I think either Commissioner DeGray or I sat, but it wasn't reflected who sat for that vote afterwards. So I didn't know if the staff was in the habit of listing everyone who voted at each vote or only after.
No, that's why I should
Yeah.
state beforehand who's sitting in, and that's why I stated it now, but also before each hearing, I
Right.
say who's, yes, it should be there.
Yeah, I don't think it was reflected in the minutes, so I'll point that out. I just gave mine away, but thanks.
Anything further?
Just grammatical.
All in favor is amended. It's unanimous. Next one is Thursday, October 12th. It's a special meeting.
Make a motion to approve the special meeting for October 12th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any errors, additions, or omissions?
Mr. Chairman, it has me as being at that meeting. I was absent at that meeting.
Okay.
You were absent from the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, my grammar's not good tonight, okay?
Anything further? Hearing nothing, all in favor as amended? It's unanimous, or no, I'm sorry, one abstention. 601. Okay,
Make a
October,
motion to approve
October 19th.
the minutes for October 19th.
Second.
Motion's made second. Any errors, additions, or omissions? I have several, and I'll give one example, I guess, and there are other pages that it affected. But what's happened on this, and I know it's because we keep changing secretaries, and it's difficult to get into a routine. But under page 2, up the top, it says motion, and the secretary has given the motion and seconded, and then it gives the votes. It doesn't include the resolution, and I've just suggested to the people that usually make the motions a new method, but the vote should be down under, after the word resolved, I'm sorry, after that last paragraph. In other words, we're missing that the vote included the whole resolution. And the vote should be after that, so,
Right, Mr. Chairman, what we've done to try to correct that, because it's been raised before, is we've created a minute template
yeah,
for the clerks to use, which says what you just said. So hopefully we're gonna
okay, well,
we're gonna correct that moving forward. We do
so
apologize
you
for
don't
it.
need all the pages, it's 2, 6, 12, and 14 is where I found them, but they may be on others. Okay, so all in favor as amended? It's
Well, I'm
unanimous.
sorry, I'm going to abstain.
Oh, one abstention. Two abstentions. 5-0-2.
Okay.
Okay, November 2nd.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for November 2nd.
Second.
Any errors, additions, or omissions?
Yes, I have a few. On page 2 at the top, it shows the roll call, but it doesn't say who sat for the absent commissioner. So I'm not sure who sat for, since,
I do that at the start, really, so the vote on the minutes is able to take. But, yeah, you're right. Okay. I have the same thing there, and it would be page 5, 10, 11, and 12. The votes are given before the total resolution.
and I also have a quick question. When we did the resolution for, on page 11, public hearing 2883 3 Woodlawn Street, one of the whereases is the commission has determined that the on-street parking and drop-off is not safe and could cause cars to queue on the street. Is that really reflective of what our decision was? In essence, I know it was in the resolution, but I don't know if that was, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, when I looked at that afterwards, I mean, that was in the draft resolution, and nobody took it out.
Okay.
And there was a lot of discussion about it, so that is the resolution you passed.
Okay. I just wanted to verify, make sure I understood, so, okay. Sounds good. Thank you for clarification. That's it.
Okay, any, all in favor as amended? This one is unanimous, 7-0-0. Okay.
I wasn't there, but I watched it.
We got through with those. All right, no bond releases. Let's see.
Public participation?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I skipped that, thank you. At this point in the meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in the town of Enfield from anyone who is present, provided you may not discuss any matter of business at this time that is already elsewhere on the agenda, any matter that's part of an open public hearing of the commission, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone would like to address the commission under those conditions? Last call to address the commission under those conditions. Hearing none, then we'll move on forward. Now bond releases, there are none. Old business public hearing 2885. This is a public hearing that's been continued. The legal ad had been read, so all we need is the attendance.
Charles Durin,
Here,
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott,
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
Richard Suzak is here.
Linda
Sir.
DeGray and Susan Gruber will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Sir, if you will set them up so your TV, sir, set your easel up over on this side. The TV camera will be picking that up for the public. We have quite a public audience out there.
Some private too.
Yes, there is a mobile
Handheld one.
handheld.
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Frank Magnotta. I'm a licensed consulting engineer with an office in Portland. I'm here representing the owner of the property and the applicant, Interlocking Connections, on their proposed use and site plan application that is before you. Just very quickly, the owners have purchased the property at this location and wish to convert the existing residential part of the structure there. There's a large building, residential structure with a small add-on and a garage in the rear, and then a large barn on the property. Those are the structures that are currently there now. They wish to convert the main part of the house structure on 2 floors, about 2,600 square feet, into offices for counseling of children and adults with autism and developmental disabilities. The property that the structures sit on is 6 acres in size. You don't see the entire property on the site plan. The property and scale are so large. This sits in the corner of, if you look at the survey map, that's a part of your documents. It sits in the upper corner of the overall parcel. The proposal as part of the development in the site plan to utilize the existing curb cut that exists just to the south of the house, and to basically enter into a larger parking area than currently exists there now. Several spaces and a handicap space there. You drive further around the back of the building, and there's several more spaces next to where the small garage is. I believe there's total 11 spaces total. Access to the building will be from an existing rear door in the back of the house. If you look on the site plan, you'll see there are sidewalks coming from the handicap space in the parking area up to a ramp system that then gets the handicap access to that back door. The sidewalk from the parking lot up to that ramping system is basically going to be paved and lighted. And there's also an extension of that sidewalk system up to the front door. The front door is used as an exit. Primarily, it is not the primary entrance for the structure. There's some landscaping that you see on the drawing that's proposed in around the building and around the parking area. Most of the front of the site that you see here is all lawn. I've highlighted the trees and the brush areas, but they're back away from the street. All the developed area that's being proposed is within the lawn areas. One of the issues that was raised through staff and through some comments, currently there's a gravel driveway that makes a loop all the way around the back of the structures. There are actually 2 curb cuts associated with this property. The main one, which is the one that is currently used for the parking access, which we will continue. But there is another one that is on a gravel road that goes around the building up to the very top here. That gravel looped driveway is being proposed to be eliminated and just turned to grass. However, we probably will leave that curb cut where it is, just in case there's any future possible use for that. But that loop driveway will will basically be removed from the rear of the garage all the way out to the front street line. Again, as I said, everything is proposed to be paved, the driveway access, and the parking areas in this area here. Because of the site is so flat and is heavily vegetated and wooded, there's no proposed drainage systems of any sort. The site basically flows away from the highway, so there's no flow going out onto the road whatsoever. It all flows toward the rear of the property through some heavy brush and vegetation, and eventually to a wetland that exists further back on the rear of the property. Another sheet that follows this one is the erosion and sedimentation controls. They're, because of the limited amount of activity, they're relatively a simple plan. Hay bales, silt fence, and a storage area for topsoil during construction. There is some proposed site lighting that does not exist there right now. There will be lighting along the sidewalks, the bollard lighting, some small attached lights along the ramp going into the building, and 2 freestanding light poles at the rear of the property near the parking in the rear, and 1 in the center of the parking that's out front. Those are the only two freestanding lighting that's proposed for the site. This shows, I skipped over that. This shows the area where silt fencing and that is being proposed. And again, because the property all sheet flows, there's no concentrated flow of any sort here. There's no drainage systems. This just allowed the sheet flow through off the area into the woods, and eventually to the wetlands. You have several standards for your special use requirements. In looking at those and looking at the area, the properties all along this side of the street are all industrial zoned. Properties on both sides, and even the property to the rear of this is zoned industrial. Across the street, there are 2 residential uses across the street, although the one very opposite to the existing structure here, and another one further to the south. Again, the exterior appearance of the site is pretty much being maintained. These structures are basically renovated on the outside, but there's no additions or no visible change going on the outside. All the renovations are occurring inside on both floors. It's about 2,600 square feet of area in this existing dwelling that are being fully renovated to accommodate the future uses in the counseling offices. Looking at the criteria for the special use, again, because of the relatively low usage and nature of the proposal, the owners expect to have up to 3 employees at one time in the building, with only 1 client per employee at any one time. So there's going to be a relatively low level of activity and any traffic associated with the use. This combined with the exterior appearance and the fact that very little on the site is being changed to accommodate this new use, I think satisfies a lot of your criteria for special permit use and your site plan. With that, I think I've hit all the major items. I don't know if the commission members have any questions.
From commissioners? Yeah,
Mr.
yes.
Chairman, if I may, were there any plans to build a sidewalk along King Street?
Not along King Street itself, only The fire marshal's office requested that we attach a new sidewalk from the front. It's like a porch in front of in front of the house. Attach that down to the parking area where the handicap parking space is, primarily for fire code, for emergency exit, and in case there's a fire in the building. But there was no other request along there. There are no other sidewalks
No other
in this area on either side of the
The only
street.
sidewalk I saw was at Creck, which was like maybe 2 or 3 blocks down.
Yeah, there's nothing on either side. And when you go along here, this is all undeveloped. There's a large part of the property that is just open lawn area.
Thank you.
Yes, Rich.
I just have one question in terms of, you're removing the existing gravel driveway and planting grass. Are you also going to do that in front of the existing barn, or are you going to leave the gravel?
We're leaving, what's in front of the barn, we're leaving alone. We're not touching that. The proposed parking and paving area stops just short. If you look on the drawing, it stops just short of the area that goes to the barn. We're not really doing anything with that.
All right. So
There's just stone and gravel, I think. That's always been there in front of the barn.
is your paving going to have a curb on it, or is it just?
No, this
curbs?
is all, everything is sheet flow off this property. There will be curbing maybe on the high side, but primarily just for retention of the soils. But on the downhill side, there's no proposed curbing there.
Thank you.
You mentioned one well. Isn't there another well up closer that you plan on filling?
There's an existing well, I believe, right in the corner here.
That's right.
Yeah, that one will be filled and eliminated. It's a shallow dug well.
Right, but you hadn't mentioned it, and you mentioned only the well further out.
I'm not sure of the intent there. Because of the proximity with the building, that one there has to be eliminated. Again, because there's no use of those wells anyway.
Well, they'd have to be tested if they were used.
Well, I said, but that's why they're being eliminated.
Do you know,
I mean, they're connected to
you
the
aren't
city.
part of the agency, are you? I was wondering if there was any thought on the use of the land to the rear of the property, because that's quite extensive.
Not at this point. They have only recently owned the property, so they really haven't thought too much. They've been concentrating on this.
I was just curious
development.
whether or not they just let it go and grow back, or some kind of managed care.
They do mow part of the area. There's a considerable amount of grass area here. They mow it, when it's not too wet back there, but they're maintaining pretty much the tree lines, the brush lines. Out in front is where the majority of that lawn area is, and they will maintain that.
Well, yes, but it does go back quite a
It goes back quite a ways, especially
Yeah.
back behind the barn area.
No, and it is wetlands. I just was curious. They have been you didn't have to go to wetlands because you're outside of the zone area.
That's correct.
So if you get down in there, you would have to deal with wetlands.
That's correct. Any disturbance of that area back.
That's why I
in
was
that area.
curious if they had any thoughts or plans. They probably should
Nah.
have a discussion with them on what they could do back there.
Not at this point. Because of the proximity to the wetlands and the fact that it gets wet as you go back there, I don't believe they have any intention of doing anything back there.
There were 8 problems or concerns listed by the fire department. What, to your knowledge, have they
Those have all been added and revised on the
want to
drawing.
cover them?
A number of things that I mentioned, yes.
Well, they've been revised on the drawings. There's no revision date on my drawings.
Yes, down in the lower corner by the title block, there is a.
Okay.
To the left of the title block.
Okay, right, I got it, 10/16. Read the wrong date.
Mr. Chairman, the only issue remaining was with the fire marshal was that this application says there's no intent at this time to use 3 buildings that are on the property, and the fire marshal said that he would not be comfortable signing off on this site plan without knowing what those other uses were at some future time, and so that's why staff drafted the resolution the way that we did, such that if they do intend to use any of those 3 other buildings, it would have to come back to this commission, and the fire marshal would have an opportunity to comment at that point in time. It's a little unique. We don't often see an application where it says an existing apartment we don't intend to use.
No, right. That's, I'm probably, we will be seeing, that's why I asked about the back properties and the rest of it. There had been, and I'd stopped there once for some reason, it had a sign out front, they did welding or had a welding sign out front. I don't know if the gentleman did welding or what in the barn, but he did have a business there.
Yeah, we're not sure what the previous owner, what the use was. I can tell you the existing barn is probably not usable. I think going in there would probably be pretty dangerous.
I think that's what, I went in there to see him one day, and it was,
It's pretty
yeah, it was
very,
rough.
very risky in there.
Yeah.
Now, to your knowledge, is the applicant amenable to that condition of no use of the barn unless further approval by the commission?
Yes, it's their intent not to use the barn
Okay.
or there was an attachment to the rear of the house. They have no intention of occupying that either as part of this application. Or the apartment, yes. The apartment is a small addition to the rear of the house, which is then attached to the garage.
Okay. Any further questions from anyone?
I just have one more question. In terms of, there's a, it appears like a pond, at, just to the south of the barn. In terms of, is that a man-made pond, or is that, a water, is it
Yes,
natural occurring, or?
that was, you can tell that it's perfectly round. It was hand dug in that area there. I'm not sure for what purpose. It was dug deep enough to have the groundwater in it, but it was definitely man-made.
All right.
And they basically been mowing around it. There's grass around it.
Do you know if it's turned into a vernal pool yet? Or?
No.
Yeah, that's,
No, I think the water's there most of the year.
okay.
I have one question. Regarding getting back to the gravel driveway, you said you were just going to place lawn over it, but the curb cut is going to be maintained. It's going to be right off of the proposed new parking spaces. What's going to prevent people from seeing that path and just all of a sudden one person uses it and there's going to be tracks, it's going to be intended, it's going to be unsightly?
Well, basically, you're talking about the curb cut itself, or the driveway. The new parking lot is built.
The
and
gravel
paved there.
driveway is the one I'm referring
Well,
to.
that's going to be eliminated and covered over. It's going to look like lawn, so no one will have a reason to drive over the lawn.
But there aren't going to be any curves or stops in the parking spaces. So
I don't think it's necessary because again, once that's turned to lawn, I don't see people trying to drive through there for any reason. There's more than enough area to turn around and come back out this way from those spaces. Plus, there'll be cars parked at the very end of the pavement here, which blocks that area.
But that wouldn't stop somebody from turning in.
Possibly not here, no. We might have to do something to put a sign or something there maybe to discourage that, but
Well, how about a curb?
you can't see it. We could curb it, yes. But when you're coming down there, this curb cut is so small and it's relatively invisible compared to the main curb cut. When you look at the difference, this is barely 10 feet wide and it's gravel. And if probably left alone and probably returned to grass anyway.
It's a state highway, so the state
Oh,
DOT
yeah.
could tell them to close it,
Yeah,
Right? Exactly.
and they may well.
that's true.
okay, thank you.
How far back is the state property out there?
Right there, right on that line.
Right on it.
Yeah. it's right up
20
front
feet.
where my green is.
Okay,
Oh, I can see.
so they're right up there. Where you thought, quarter inch,
It's like 20 feet.
yeah. So you're about, we're just measuring about 20 feet from the state line.
Yes, the
Property line.
curb to the street line there is about 20 feet, yes.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, well, then I'll open it to the public. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Roger, any comments, concerns, opinions?
No, I'd just like to thank the applicant for, following the many suggestions that were made along the way. I know it was a daunting task, a nonprofit organization that's trying to, utilize grant money and expand an operation and provide a service. They're not in the real estate or land development business, and I think ultimately we've got a product in front of the commission that will serve the town well.
I would add that I think the commission approves, thanks them as well, because this is an example of when people are prepared and have things together, it really goes smoothly. Hearing nothing, I will close public hearing 2885.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of the resolution for public hearing number 2885, dated November 16th, 2017, by the Planning Department with the following 26 conditions.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. I noticed that there are no hours in here, or are there, or did I miss them?
They're actually under narrative, way in the back. And it says office hours will be from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., supported by 2 to 3 employees with no more than 3 clients. It doesn't give the dates, though.
No, I was saying, but in the motion just made, so I would add the conditions of the hours. It's not necessary for the number of employees, but
Would that be for like Monday through Friday with none on Saturday, or?
whatever they said in there.
They didn't specify.
They didn't specify. That's the only thing I did notice, that, I did notice the hours, but I thought they specified, but now that I'm looking at it, they did not.
So playing devil's advocate here, is there a reason why they would have to know what the hours are?
Well, they had stated it, and we, not really in that industrial area, but it's something we've always have done.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally up to the commission, but in terms of if you say they're 9 to 7, and what if they want to open 9 to 8, and do they have to come back and get an amendment, and so on and so forth? And I realize that in many instances there's a legitimate reason, but
Well, we could
there's
give
no
them
neighbors or
longer-
anything, so
longer
I'm
hours
just,
To me, it doesn't make any difference, the hours, it's what they had put in. We can go to 10 o'clock if they want to, I don't know.
For what it's worth, I'm not concerned about traffic on
Okay.
the main road, because there is traffic on that
All right,
road at all
so
hours.
You don't, if the commission doesn't want it, that's fine too.
I don't see a
Okay.
I don't
reason.
see a reason. I mean, this is a low impact, it's one-on-one type of situation. I don't think they're not playing music and
Okay,
partying out
fine,
there.
it
so-
wasn't imposed anyhow, it's just a question.
Okay,
Okay, you ready, then?
go for it.
All in favor? So unanimous, great. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for coming in fully prepared. Okay. New business, public hearing, 95 Elm Street. Secretary, read the roll and take the Read the legal notice.
Okay. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 16th, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2886, 95 Elm Street, special use permit application for a tenant identification pylon sign for Coles Plaza, section 10.330.9, freestanding tenant identification signs, parentheses, pylon signs, in business and industrial districts, end of the parentheses. KOP Enfield LP, owner applicant, map 43, lot 1, business regional BR zone. Charles Duran,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott,
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber,
Here.
Guillermo Salazar,
Here.
Richard Suzak is here.
Commissioners Gruber and DeGray will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Or a sidebar now with
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, professional staff, Mr. O'Brien. For the record, my name is Chris Smith. I am a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Shipman and Goodwin, and I appear before you this evening on behalf of the owner applicant, KOP Enfield LP, with this application for special permit approval to permit the removal of an existing pylon sign at 95 Elm Street and replace it with a new one that's been submitted pursuant to your new regulations. And I thank you for, and Kimco. Okay, sorry. We appreciate, I know we've been here, I think this is our third time, but it is a public hearing, and we may have one or two new members, I'm not sure. So we'll walk through the application, obviously. But again, we do appreciate your efforts. I think we started almost a year ago, right about now, and working with regulations that we came up with, and then going with your regulations that were recently adopted, which quite frankly we like better than the ones we had prepared.
Well, I want to thank you because you worked with us and suggested things to us, and it worked out very well, the cooperation.
Well, thank you. And I do have one housekeeping. I know with the affidavit for the posting of the sign, we did send that in. I do have a copy, but if you don't need it, then all set. Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is just quickly introduce the members of the team here, because we did bring everybody tonight in case you have any questions. Chris Simonello, who you've met before, from Kimco Realty. Chris is an associate. He is the Associate Director of Development for the Northeast region. We also have with us Duncan Brennan from Kimco, who is Management Associate. And then finally, our civil engineer, who is also a traffic engineer, Mr. Patrick O'Leary from VHB. So again, we have brought everybody. We will be hearing from Chris in a moment after I provide an overview. And if you have any questions for Patrick, Patrick, again, is here this evening to respond to any questions. So I've already thanked you. What I'd like to do is just provide a quick overview of the proposal. The subject property is located at, I'm just going to, I don't know, can we, it's got to go that way? Has to go that way?
We got it right here.
Right there.
Some of the towns, like Norwalk, they have a whole panel going across, and they have a couple low like that. So I didn't realize that was there. Thank you. So the site is a little over almost 14 acres. It's 13.7 acres, and it obviously comprises a commercial center with about 146,000 square feet of space. It is known as the Elm Plaza. It's located in the BR district, which qualifies under your new text amendment. And we do have an existing pylon on, as you can see, there's two entrances to the site. Again, it's about 13.78 acres. There's an entrance on this side, on the left-hand side. This is the westerly side of the site. And there is another entrance over on the easterly side right there. The one on the westerly side does have a medium, and that's where the existing sign is located. And Chris is going to walk you through the old sign, the existing sign, and the proposed new one in a moment, and you'll see that it's quite different and much better. On
Yeah,
the
it is.
easterly
Not as-
side, we do not have a median, and we have basically 5 lanes that really go up to the property line on either side, east and west. So again, the application involves a proposed new pylon sign to replace the existing one on the westerly side. I think you can see quite readily from the property that it's what we in the zoning world and planning world would refer to as a rear parcel, a rear lot. And it's the shopping center itself. Well, the property is outlined in yellow, and you do have a copy of this exhibit and all the other ones that in the application package. And I do have the cover letter with, if anybody needs a copy. And so it's outlined in the yellow. The shopping center is essentially in the rear of the property. The distance from the shopping center stores out to Elm Street 202 is a little over 600 feet. So basically, you have 2 football fields between Elm Street, where you have traffic, vehicular, pedestrian traffic, and in between there, you have 5 different parcels,
Yeah, that
upon which
surprised me.
Denny's, AAA,
Surprised
Starbucks,
me.
McDonald's,
That was
and
all
Dunkin'
part of the
Donuts.
same
Yeah.
Those sites are not owned by Kiop, and Kiop is an entity of Kimco Realty, which I think you might remember that. So we are basically, as I refer to in the cover letter, the site is visually landlocked from Elm Street. And Chris will explain to you in a moment the problems that they've had with the current retail market, and in particular with this property, with brokers coming back and explaining the difficulties in trying to rent out all the space. They don't have 100% tenancy occupancy at this point in time. They do have some vacant space. So one of the reasons we are here, the main reason we are here, is to look for a pylon sign that will provide for tenant identification for people traveling along on Elm Street Route 202. And I think that the proposed sign does achieve that. What I'd like to do, with permission of the chair, is turn it over to Chris at this point, and Chris can walk you through the proposed sign itself. Thank you. And if I may, exactly. And Planning Director O'Brien Roger did ask us to provide an updated graphic for you that we did get to Roger. It just came in. I do have extra copies of it that depicts all the panels. I know we asked for 12 in the cover letter.
We have them here.
Submitted on the plan show 10, but we did get this other one in, and this is the one that we're going to be referring to. And thank you to Roger for picking up on that and affording us the opportunity to get that.
Called him the other day. 'Cause it said-
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everybody. Nice seeing you again. My name is Chris Simonello from Kimco Realty. Like Chris said, I'm an Associate Director of Development, and like Chris said, I echo his sentiments that, we've been working on this for about a year and going through the process and meeting with your staff, and it's really been a good experience working with your staff. They really have the town's best interest in mind. This graphic here clearly identifies what Elm Plaza is, showing our anchor tenants, Kohl's and Best Buy, 2 vacancies right now, and some of the shop tenants, Chicago Sam's, Sally Beauty, Fantastic Sam's, Lane Bryant, the Discount Wine and Liquor, and then we have Famous Footwear. Every building that's out that's grayed out is
Footwear,
not
sure.
owned by Kiop, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Kimco, and some of the feedback that we've been getting from the broker community who's tried to lease the space is that, like Chris said, our property is landlocked. It's 2 football fields set back from Elm Street, and it also is blocked by 5 buildings that we don't control. So to remedy that, we are proposing replacing an outdated, obsolete pylon sign with something that is a multi-tenant pylon sign. We're refurbishing it. We're upgrading it so that the sign itself improves the look and feel not only of the entrance, but also the look and feel that's compatible with the look and feel of Elm Plaza, which happens to be a beautiful shopping center. It's a Tier 1 asset, and it deserves Tier 1 signage. Secondly, it will improve the visibility for our tenants. We all know, we've all read in the news or heard in the news about the Amazon effect, what's going on with brick and mortar retail, that there's a lot of competition from online retailers like Amazon. Our retailers in your town, just like in all towns across the country, need as much help as possible to be successful. And we believe that installing a multi-tenant pylon sign will increase the chances of our tenants being successful here in Enfield, allowing us to maintain occupancy and also grow occupancy. Here's a rendering of the pylon that we are proposing. It's about 30 feet tall, which is about the height of the existing pylon sign, so we don't want to go any taller than that. It's about 230 square feet of sign area per side. It has 12 tenant panels and one tenant and one site identification panel. So you have Elm Plaza on the top, Kohl's, Best Buy, and the shop tenants. We're going to be upgrading the lighting. The existing pylon sign is internally illuminated with old halide lights. This will be internally illuminated with more energy efficient LED lighting.
And I think you know what the existing sign looks like, and it is part of the packet. It almost looks like one of those old Route 66 signs, you know, vintage signs out in Arizona or wherever. But that is included in the packet.
Here's just here's another rendering with the existing pylon sign. It's smaller than what we're proposing, but as Chris said, it is outdated. It is obsolete, and you know, our tenants really could use the pylon sign that we're proposing for the reasons I outlined earlier. Just to give the public an understanding of what the existing pylon sign looks like from Elm Street, this is a shot facing west, east. This is from inside the shopping center, and this is just outside the shopping center, facing north. And lastly, here's a rendering of what the proposed pylon sign will look like at street level. Clearly large enough, conspicuous enough, so that passerby traffic can anticipate turning movements with plenty of time before making the turn. So in closing, granting this pylon sign will allow us to increase visibility for all our tenants who are set back about 2 football fields from Elm Street and also blocked by 5 non-controlled pad buildings, improve the aesthetic appeal of the overall entrance and the overall shopping center, help us combat the internet or Amazon effect, and also improve the likelihood of success for all brick and mortar tenants in our shopping center to maintain and grow occupancy in the town of Enfield. That will.
And just really quickly, respectfully submit that the application does satisfy not only your new zone text amendment that you recently adopted, I believe it was back in September, and the requirements, the minimum requirements for signage there, but also the special permit criteria, because again, this is a special permit application under your regulations, and as indicated in our application to you, we respectfully submit that what is being proposed will be visible, as Chris just indicated, to approaching vehicular traffic with sufficient time and directional value relative to the posted speed conditions. And then finally, we submit that the location and the size of the proposed sign is appropriate, necessary, and consistent with the existing conditions because of the unique attributes associated with what in effect is this rear parcel, and it will not adversely impact the adjacent, the values of the adjacent properties. Again, the part of the criteria, not all of it, that's required by your special permit applications and your regulations. So in closing, I do join with Chris relative to thanking the commission and professional staff, in particular your Director of Planning, Mr. O'Brien, for working with us all this time and providing us with input relative to the actual sign that's before you this evening. So again, thank you. Mr. O'Brien did provide us with a draft resolution and made reference to, there's, I believe it's condition number 6 that makes reference to these 2 panels at the lower portion of the sign. And I am just making this pitch to see. I know that Mr. O'Brien, I suspect, and we weren't able to really talk about this in depth, with the Kimco Realty located on the right panel and then the phone number, we would just ask the commission and Mr. O'Brien to consider leaving that there. It does provide the ability, it's not really advertising off-site for like the Hartford stage or anything like that, but it just identifies the owner and provides contact information. If there is a prospective, if there's a local business person who wants to contact the owner, Kimco, they're not brokers, they don't have a broker office there, they don't have an office on site, that information would be there. And
It's a maintenance issue. Oftentimes we get phone calls in other areas, either from the public or from town staff. If there's a maintenance issue that we're not aware of, they know who to call and a number to call and direct them to the right personnel so we can solve a problem a little bit quicker.
But again, we would respectfully request that be permitted to stay, and that if it is indeed, as I believe the condition makes reference to, needed for new tenants, for example, that we would be able to swap. I mean, we're asking for those 10 panels, 12 panels altogether. There are 10 there, and then the 2 larger ones to be approved. So if needed, we're asking for that space
14.
as well, so that Kimco wouldn't have to return every time a tenant was moving around on the sign itself. But anyways,
It's all interchangeable
I think that's what you said.
paneling. It's not a permanent panel per se.
While you're there, Attorney Smith, we had asked the possibility of a sign at the east end of the plaza, and you aren't proposing one at this time. Is there a reason, or?
Well, your professional staff, Mr. O'Brien, spent a lot of time with us on that, and we both professional staff spent a lot of time looking at the zoning records for the plaza. Kimco acquired this property in 2000, I think it was.
Yeah, December of 2000.
And the history goes back, I think, into the 70s, and there's also, and essentially there's the properties. There are 3 parcels. There's a Burger King over here,
Right.
and there's a Denny's here. And as I indicated, we did look into the title. We looked into easements that these 3 properties have across the Kimco property. This site actually has a right over the 50 feet, and this is all pavement, and we don't have any place to put the sign. So we reported back to Mr. O'Brien, who said, well, why don't you go and talk to Burger King on the right-hand side, who's not shown on here, and Denny's on the left, just to see if they would allow you, Kimco, to put a sign there that might be able to include signage for some of these rear properties, these that are in the back, that never were approved with signage up on Elm Street because they are a rear property.
Right.
And I did provide Mr. O'Brien, I do have copies of the emails. I know Chris spent a lot of time tracking down Denny's and Burger King, and it is a small world out there when it comes to commercial landowners. But we did get confirmation from both that they weren't interested in allowing us to put a pylon sign on their properties to accommodate the concern that was articulated to us by Mr. O'Brien. He saw it as an opportunity, and rightly so, to inquire, would we be able to address this particular issue that has come up before. So we did look into that.
At one point, I think that the offer was made that perhaps on the sign that you have now, that you would include the panels for the doctor's offices, the 113 and the 115. That was a suggestion that you made at one point in time.
I don't know how much that would help, but it was something that we did in the discussions with Mr. O'Brien referenced. So, for example, I mean, but I don't know, that might even be misleading, but that was something that we did suggest as opposed to Mr. O'Brien was giving us a full court press relative to the easterly entrance in a good way,
Well, that's one thing that we've been doing, I know, because a lot of people do. They get, and I don't know the addresses for the doctor's office buildings, and there's a daycare center in there, and people, where is it? Where are those numbers? And it does create a problem for people.
So I have, so Roger, you did mention adding panels on the pylon sign.
I don't think I mentioned that. I think it was suggested by your.
It was suggested, well, I'm saying you mentioned it now.
And go ahead.
We looked into doing that. We looked into doing that, but unfortunately, that violates the rights of our existing tenants who have specific language in their leases, specific branding. But another suggestion would be to install two wayfinding signs here and here, with clearly identifying where these buildings are and also where these tenants are. I do have an example that
Those would be interior signs. So
they would be interior signs.
I think once before, the property owner had come in, and I think that's what we had recommended was interior signs. But that didn't work out.
Okay.
And I mean, you also have the containers in the back too. That's the storage area. In back of your plaza, isn't there the storage? So that's an entirely different parcel too than what yours is. So you really have quite a scene over there.
And it would be great if Denny's or Burger King would permit some sort of signage, and in particular with the medical. I'm just calling it the medical offices. I know there's different uses in there, but I'm referring to these three buildings here.
Right.
I mean, it'd be great if one or the other would let the owners, who I know have been to the commission and approached your staff in the past, to let them put some signage there. But again, we specifically asked if we could put signage on either one that would, for that purpose.
We give an attempt and you tried, and that's the least we could do.
The other driveway over here, when you go out and look at it, you have a right-hand turn lane coming out over there that doesn't line up with across the street. And based upon staff's observation, we really didn't know what the purpose of that extra right-hand turn lane. You have two right-hand turn lanes coming out over there, and if you were to eliminate one of those right-hand turn lanes, you'd have room for the pylon sign in the middle.
Well,
Just a suggestion that did come up based upon staff review of your latest comments, which is why you couldn't put a sign there. I'm not sure that those two right turn lanes are necessary.
Well, one of the things that Mr. O'Brien asked us to look into was doing something along those lines, and we do have Patrick O'Leary here. This on the easterly side. That's essential. That's where the truck traffic delivery occurs because of the turning movements. The turning movement over here really doesn't permit it because of the median and the fact that there is the signage there. But we looked at everything, and again, Patrick's here. He did a template for a truck that would basically go through the sign if we were to put something there, even if we were able to slide it over because of a lane elimination. It's just, and it is where the trucks enter because they just the tractor trailers just can't make it into here. And if you'd like to see that template, we can show you. But it was, we made every effort. We didn't have the hearing for whatever, 4 a month while we were looking into these particular issues that Roger in particular was pressing us to look into. So we did, and we're trying.
He was very polite when asking.
He was.
No.
Oh, that's
and
that's
as
good
I
to
said
hear.
before, everything was fine. No, that's Roger's responsibility on behalf of the commission, just like he said. That's-
enough.
And it was my responsibility to suggest to Kimco that, look
You
into,
did
we have
what
to
you
look into
could,
this.
and
yeah.
that's-
My responsibility to look into it.
Questions from
No,
the
no,
commission?
yeah.
I have a quick question. Now, on the revised schematic that we got today, it says that the height essentially from the ground to when the sign starts is now 8 feet? Because I guess the pictures we got before showed a car potentially sitting, waiting to get onto that main road. And that was before when there were only 5 panels, but now, 10 panels, but now there are 12. And so my question is, if you're sitting at a truck at that stoplight, can you see through where that tent, now the Kimco sign is?
The 8 feet to look under it. Patrick O'Leary of VHB is a traffic engineer. If you want, he can respond to it. I'm just, for the record, he's nodding yes, they can see through it. I mean, what is the height is, I know like for shrubs and things, it's
8 feet clearance is
more.
more than adequate.
So the comment from Patrick O'Leary.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, my name is Patrick O'Leary. I'm a principal with the firm VHB, 100 Great Meadow Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut. I did look at the traffic in the vicinity of the proposed pylon sign. The clearance there is more than adequate for traffic on Elm Street to see through potential cars exiting the plaza itself. I also do have copies, if the commissioners would like, for the record, of the truck turning template, which clearly demonstrates that it would not be possible to put an island on the easterly curb cut there. That is the main truck access into the site. Trucks, be it coming from the west, trying to turn into the site, would be going over the outbound lanes. Actually, it goes over 2 of the outbound lanes for WB 62 tractor trailer going in there. Trucks traveling easterly, which there are less trucks entering the site that way, still go over the outbound lanes. They go over one of the outbound lanes, create an unsafe condition. There is congestion. It's quite heavily trafficked, and we don't need trucks being tied up with vehicles, preventing them from being able to turn into the site. And to answer your question very quickly, the double right-hand turn lane is because of the volumes associated there. And if you cut that down to a single right-hand turn lane coming out of that site, you would have to change the timing and make the green signal stay green longer coming out of the plaza, which would impact traffic and the sequence of cars moving up and down Elm Street, further deteriorating traffic. So,
It's all right.
apologize. Yes, I knew the question came
If
from.
you have-
It is nice to see you again.
If Roger doesn't have those, would you submit that for the record,
Absolutely.
and then we have them? If someone else should walk in here and want to know why, Roger can give them an answer.
And we did come up with Patrick. He joined us. We came up a few weeks ago and met with staff and just reported some of these things that we're reporting to you tonight. So it's, Roger had anticipated that you would be bringing these issues up. So we were able to take the time to do the research on them.
It sounds like you did a thorough job on it.
I would have to include your planning director on our team at this point in time. It has been a team effort to get to this point, and again, we do appreciate all the assistance along the way.
I had another question. I guess driving past there now, it seems that with this new proposed sign, it would probably block from Elm Street view of the Dunkin' Donuts sign and the McDonald's sign when you're
They're gonna
approaching
worry about that.
a little bit. I mean, has the applicant considered the directional value or the effect of this sign on people attempting to access locations other than your, obviously we want them to access your location, but the other tenants?
I don't know, Patrick, if you want to, I mean, I
could say, what I can say is, these are highly visible pad sites that aren't blocked by, that don't have the same hardships that our tenants do, because they're right on front of, right up front.
I don't know if it would.
Their signage is tall, and again, we're not looking to exceed the height of our existing pylon sign. We're not going from 30 feet to 50 feet. We're staying at 30 feet.
Right.
and
This is an interesting shopping center because your regulations required street frontage, and when the pads all get sold off, this in effect is a non-conforming shopping center at the moment. So, on the one hand, the applicant is saying, well, those other stores in the back didn't get a sign out front because they're in the back, but they're in the back as well. So this is why that we spent about a month exploring every possibility to try to improve the situation. And I have to say that they did take the request of the commission seriously.
Well, some interior directional signs, I think, would help in addition to this outside, if really, because there's not much else. You've explored every other way to identify these other back buildings, and not much I can see otherwise.
The only odd thing is that you don't know what those buildings are in the back, except for they have the sign that's up on the buildings that says, I think it's 113 and 115. And so the only other suggestion was to put 113 and 115 along with the other number on that sign, so people know that, 113 is actually, I can go in here and go over there. Because other than that, you don't know from the street.
No,
You don't know where 113 is, you don't know where 115 is.
no, or even the storage area too.
And and the other suggestion is, in terms of those two panels, they keep referring to it as 10 panels and the one up on top, but it's 12. And so you have those additional two panels. If you drive into the shopping center, you do have Kimco on a lot of the buildings inside. I mean, you can find out who to call if you want to. So that was why the staff suggestion was you didn't really need those two panels that are in fact advertising for Kimco there, and that might free up two panels as well. I mean, if they do have a place for sale, they can put it up, but your regulations do say that leasing signs and real estate signs are temporary signs. They're not permanent. So it's entirely the discretion of the commission, but that was our suggestion. So, I mean, you've got leave the Kimco and the telephone number down there. You got take it off. You've got the suggestion of adding 113 and 115 Elm Street to that sign, as well as whatever the number is. There's no number on that
Big
pylon
enough,
sign.
yeah, more
One suggestion ought to be,
These guys got
there should be
worse.
some number. Or if you put a number on there that said it's from 110 to 115 or something. There's no street number on the sign.
No, that's true. Yes.
I think what Kimco would like to keep, the 12 panels, and there's 10 below, 2 above, if
Well, to me, you
possible
got
for their
13
tenants.
'cause you got
But
this
to
one up
address
here.
what Chris mentioned before, and Roger and you, Mr. Chairman, to put some directional signage.
Yeah, if you count the Elm Plaza as a sign, that's a sign, I would think.
Addressing you.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no. You take
I
your
gotta
time.
sign
You're the
the-
decision maker. You take your time.
13 because they own Plaza on top.
Well, a thought was, again, if we could keep that sign, it's way over here, if we could keep that signage for the tenants, and we could put Kimco as a condition of approval, would certainly come up with some directional signage, nice directional signage here, so that people coming in would have, there would be, in effect, panels there on signage for these other 3 properties. So anybody pulling in would be able to see that and be directed to that. We did spend a lot of time looking at old easements and whatever. Everybody has easement rights across here, but it's nothing about signage, and it just provides for ingress, egress out to Elm Street.
I've,
Examples of a wayfinding sign that I can show the board and the public if you'd like.
Actually, I've had occasion to go, there's mostly specialists in those doctors' buildings, and I've had occasion to go to them.
Yeah, I have to-
And their staff is very adamant about how to get there. You go to Kohl's and turn right. Essentially, that's what they tell you. So
They don't want you not to be able to find them,
No,
I'm
they
sure.
know they're back there, and they just, when they're making the appointment and tell you, you have to be here such and such a time, and this is where we are. So,
Because, Roger, I was thinking that, they have that big cornice at the top of the sign, it's sort of beveled, but realistically, you might be able to put some numbers on the top there, just sort of indicate something that, it's an address in terms of it's Elm Plaza, and it's 95 through, 135 or whatever type of thing.
Well, that's not really part of the plaza, but
Oh.
if you want 95 to appear on here, that's probably,
Well, the interesting thing is, the doctor's offices say Elm Plaza Doctor's Offices, and that's their name.
It's the doctor's offices, or the office buildings are, I believe this is 113 Elm Street.
Right, but they,
115 Elm
but,
Street, and
but,
then-
but they have an identification sign here.
Yes, they
And
do.
if it comes
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
and the sign says Elm Plaza Doctor's Offices.
Because possibly if they knew that was 95, it gives you an idea that 113 is pretty,
Yeah.
is pretty close, and it's an odd number, so it would be on the same side, so,
I think 95 would be fine. myself.
right.
You mean, is it possible to have?
no, I want to be clear.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
We're going all over the place here with signage. I think the question is, can we put 95 Elm Street somewhere on this so that it's very clear to anybody driving along, it's not 113 or 115, this is 95. That's-
To make sure that I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right, someone puts in their phone, get me to Kohl's, it says 90 Elm Street, and there's nothing on there that says 90 Elm Street. Oh, you'd see Kohl's, but.
Shopping center itself
Correct.
go on.
Which makes sense. He just didn't get it. He didn't know that's what, that was being missed. Which makes sense, and nobody's going to mistake that for 113 or whatever the other numbers are for the other stuff.
I'm sorry.
Right, well, that's how we all, right? That's when we're looking for something. If we're looking for 200, we see, 160, we know we're getting close, and we're actually looking on the right side of the road, the correct side of the road. But that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Because I just have one more question. In terms of, with the increase in surface area of your new sign, I imagine you're going to have to increase the foundation system for that. And, is there going to be a significant disturbance in order to install that new sign, because of the fact that, it's a big wind sail and, if you start running engineering calculations, they might get like really crazy as to what you're going to need to do there? And has anybody given that any thought?
You have an engineer.
Once again, Patrick O'Leary. These signs are fairly traditional. Just looking at this, I would anticipate probably a 5-foot diameter base under each pedestal. They'll probably be sunk 8 to 10 feet down. These are cored. Sonotubes go in as they're coring them, pulling the dirt out, and the concrete is typically cast right against the ground there. So from a disturbance standpoint, you don't have a great deal of land disturbance, just the 2 5-foot diameter pylons going down into the ground. If they use precast, it's even easier. They'll dig it, core it, drop the precast concrete right in, and then mount the sign. So there won't be a great deal of disturbance. There will obviously be maintenance protection of traffic at the entrance while they are installing both, be it the concrete foundations and the sign. But that'll be temporary in nature, typically during 10-hour day, maybe 2 days to 3 days, where there will be maintenance protection of traffic out there controlling traffic during that installation. But there won't be a great deal of ground disturbance.
Okay, any further questions, Commission? So the one decision is you, on the leasing, the phone number and the Kimco sign, whether that is to be allowed or not allowed. And that's one decision you'll have to make. Let me open it to the public, I guess. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Now, you've read the conditions apparently, and you have any problems with them is the,
For the record, I believe it was just what we and we've had this discussion, which is great, with everyone concerning condition number 6. But
Okay.
a quick perusal, the other ones look pretty standard conditions, and we would have no objection to them, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, based on the conversation, I just added a potential 6A for the Commission's consideration, which is the street number shall be located on the sign.
Again, we have, Kimco has no objection to that.
Where would we put that up on
Site specific?
It could be 6A or
6A?
what you do
Okay,
with 6.
take note of that, Mary. And the other is item 6, or maybe that stays as 6, whether, that's up to the commission. Okay,
And again, Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear, because once the hearing's closed, it's closed, as we know. And if for whatever reason, if the Kimco just would like to be clear that the bottom 2 panels are part of the application. This is shown on here for now. I mean, the tenants are all going to change over time. Space will change. But if indeed the commission were to say that we didn't want to have the Kimco name there or the phone, we just were hoping to make it clear tonight that indeed it could be used for tenants.
oh, right.
Forward in that we wouldn't have to come back. I think that's
Well, you
what
could
Mr.
increase the
O'Brien-
size of the other, the tenants that are there.
because there is vacancy even now, so, but we just wanted to be clear on that.
Well, you
so
have
that-
2 that state that there are vacancies, so.
Sorry?
You have 2 that are, the states there are vacancy, future tenant,
Right.
Yeah, the intent of the resolution was they could keep the panels, but the panels should be for the public's information with respect to what's in the plaza.
right.
So if the commission was to go along with removing that, I think the attorney's point is he wants it to be clear that though it isn't that they're taking 2 panels out and making the space higher underneath the sign. They could still have those panels. It's just they would have to be for a tenant in the shopping center.
Okay.
Because Roger, in terms of, I guess when I ride down, the strips, I see other, leasing available or tenant available, signs that other leasing, companies do have. Could we indicate in the stipulation that once all the, tenants are filled, all the spaces are filled, they take those down? Because, and again, I imagine, it's just like, the other tenants, the other leasing agencies that have the opportunity to put something on their
That's true.
front pad that says, we have space available. And as soon as
So the
everything gets
wording-
leased, they have to remove those panels. And then when they get an opening again, they can put them back,
I
and
think
it would
that's
be more temporary than, permanent.
Would be a good,
I mean, I guess if leaving it there permanently or keeping a Kimco sign up all the time is not a tenant identification sign, that is the
Right.
owner identification.
Right.
So I don't see this as being a tenant identification if we have Kimco up all the time. So to the extent that there's a vacancy.
Right.
Yes, they can, I would see that.
If I may, it's a tool to help us.
Oh, sure.
lease Not only existing vacancy, but potential new vacancy. Sometimes, to answer your question, sometimes tenants are physically occupying the space, but aren't doing well, and have asked us that they want to terminate their leases early, this is the way for, either brokers or another prospective tenant to readily view a number and a contact, even at night when it's internally illuminated. A lot of those other signs, the V-shaped leasing
Color
signs.
economic.
But what we're saying is you could keep your Kimco and leasing panels there as long as there's a vacancy. And then as soon as, the entire plaza is leased, you would remove them. And then as soon as you know there's going to be another vacancy, you can advertise it again. But it wouldn't be a permanent fixture on the sign. It would be more or less a temporary fixture, and it would conform with our regulations that, the leasing agent cannot be a permanent fixture. So, and it gives you the opportunity, as long as there's going to be a vacancy or there's a vacancy there, you can put your name up. And as soon as people see your name up, they might say, well, geez, they might have a vacancy coming up. And then all of a sudden, when you remove one of those panels, they'll know it's a vacancy. Then all of a sudden, it sort of alerts everybody ahead of time, but it still conforms with our regulations. And it gives you what you're looking for without having to put one of those plastic signs somewhere.
So that, okay, so, how, I think that's that makes it out good. We gotta reword 6, and while you're doing
Yeah,
that.
so you can say the leasing and signs should be removed from the bottom of the pylon sign when the shopping center is fully leased.
And then do you want to add anything? And
Well, then it says as spaces are available, the leasing signs may be once again up there.
okay, so, you got that, Mary?
The other one is 6B, is that the 95 Elm Street will be attached to the sign.
Right, okay, so 6A is being changed, and 6B is being added. Since a lot of discussion, I can't close it yet, so I'll reopen it.
I just have one more comment on this.
All right.
This one addition, which is, it's unclear to me whether if 6A, that leasing and Kimco Realty are removed, that what's the total square footage of sign that will be there? Because the application we got was a little bit different than the addition we got today.
yeah.
And so I'm confused. If we remove the Kimco, does that mean everything's getting squished upwards? Or does that mean you're maintaining all of the square footage from the
Yep.
amended application, or the amended pictorial we got
Yep.
today? Okay.
Those two places will just be,
Available square footage.
It's going to be the same square footage that we've asked for, which is 228 square feet
they'll
per
be just
side.
blank in that
Okay.
area.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
An observation, doesn't number 6 already read like we want it to read?
Leasing.
The leasing and Kimco Realty signs shall be removed from the bottom of the pylon sign, period. As tenant spaces are available, the leasing signs may utilize one of those tenant spaces for the duration of a vacancy.
No, we changed it to say once, if as tenant spaces are available, the leasing signs may be posted again.
I think it said it can stay there if there's vacancies, but as soon as there are no vacancies, then they have to come down. Or they
Right.
have to not come down, bad words. They
Have to be replaced by the-
They would be replaced by the new tenants, or existing tenants would be shuffled around. The idea is to have those two panels there going forward, not as one or whatever, but to have those two panels that have them swapped out when there is full.
Yeah, I guess the only deal, if you read it, it says the leasing signs may utilize one of the tenant spaces, and that's not really a tenant space. The tenant spaces are the tenant spaces, and the owner spaces are the owner spaces. So, that's the only
But
difference.
That's why we changed it, and maybe we just say that the leasing signs are not permanent signs.
It says shall be removed from the bottom of the pylon sign. Okay,
Maybe.
so you got it out, and what was the rest of your verbiage there, Roger? What was the rest of that you had? You have started.
Yeah, as tenant spaces are available, the language we had was if tenant spaces are available, the leasing signs may be again put up, so however.
Our display.
Because instead of utilizing one of the tenant spaces, which Guillermo was correct, we crossed that out.
How about just maybe displayed?
Maybe again displayed.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
fine.
All set? Any problems?
No, we're good.
Okay, then you gentlemen set? I go to the public again. Anyone in the public again would like to speak in favor or against the application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. And I shall close public hearing 2886.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for working with us.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the approval of the resolution for public hearing number 2886, dated November 16th, 2017, by the Planning Department with 25 conditions, adding an additional condition under 6A, which is 95 Elm Street shall be added to the sign, and correcting number 6 to state, the leasing and Kimco Realty signs shall be removed from the bottom of the pylon sign when there are no vacancies. As tenant spaces are available, the leasing signs may be displayed again.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion?
I think we did that.
I have a bit of a concern with,
Uh,
oh,
all right, it's a discussion.
this discussion? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Mr.
go
Chair.
ahead.
Discussion, go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
I'm a bit concerned with the 8-foot clearance, having driven by there, because now you can't really see Dunkin' Donuts as you're driving by. Yes, they have a street front, and sure, you can see cars when you're on Elm, you can see cars that are ready to leave onto Elm. But if you're sitting at that intersection, turning, I don't think you'll be able to see through that sign to the left. So I think from a directional standpoint, it's a little concerning how low down and how much square footage there is. That said, it's within the limits of the regulations, so.
There's a light there, and if you're at the light, you can't make a left-hand turn. I
Right.
know people do it, even though it's
That's
red.
true.
There is the left on red now.
Or if you're making the
rule.
left and
But
someone's gonna blow the red,
Again,
you might not be able to see it as well. That said, I don't think it's
Yeah.
a problem unless you're in like a big truck. But I am concerned about not being able to see the Dunkin' Donuts, or from the other way, being able to see.
Well, secondly, if they were concerned, they'd be here.
Right, exactly.
Right. And I think you can see Dunkin' Donuts. I think they've branded themselves well enough that their building, their color, there's a Dunkin' Donuts. We all know where Dunkin' Donuts are.
Yeah, there's a Dunkin' Donuts at the gas station over
Right
there,
across
and
the
I was
street.
there the other day, and that was so backed up going through there. Okay. Anything further? Hearing
I do
none?
want to say one thing. I did notice, and I wish I could remember which street I was on in Enfield, but I saw a similar pylon sign on one of those plazas that were set back. And it wasn't huge, but it did help identify the buildings that were set back, which I think helps them. And we don't want to discourage people. We want to encourage them to continue here.
No, after reading the paper on the project in East Hartford that is being held up presently, I think this least you could do is signage.
Yeah.
If you're ready to vote then, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. And again, thank you very much for the work with us.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Public hearing 2889. I do have to open it, or you'll have to take the roll The applicant is not here, I don't believe, because the sign was not posted. If you'll take read the legal notice and take the roll.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 16th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2889, 39 Hazard Avenue, modification of a special permit to change exterior color, Udoff Properties owners, Plaza Aztec, Richard Garcia applicant, map 56, lot 2, business regional BR zone. Charles Duran,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott,
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Commissioners DeGray and Gruber will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Just a question, Roger. Has he been notified?
He was notified that he had to post his sign, and the sign didn't get posted. So we really had no choice.
Are you in communication with just him or the central office?
With and on November the 6th, Rick Rosselli sent him an email informing him that it needed to be posted, and it didn't get posted. And so we are in touch with Ricardo Garcia. The central office or the building owner did give him permission to apply. What he did say to Rick Rosselli is that he went to Home Depot and he picked out a paint. He didn't realize the color it was, and he didn't realize what it was until he put it up.
Well, it's still no excuse anyway. He
Yeah.
changed the colors. As a suggestion, and we've done this.
I mean, we've looked
prior-
at other we've looked at other restaurants in the chain and the surrounding towns,
Is that
and
the
they
way
they all are an earthen tone. None of them have that color.
I was going to say, they let him pick his own colors for the restaurant? Usually a chain doesn't do that. They have standard colors.
All I can report is what the gentleman reported to us, which is he went to Home Depot, he picked out a color that he thought was similar to the color, he put it up.
As a suggestion, maybe, is to get in touch with their main office, wherever it is, and tell them the difficulty we've had in getting them in here.
So one of the thoughts that we did have, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know what you think of it, is that, realizing that it may be a hardship to repaint all four sides at once. Was the commission amenable if he goes back to the color that was originally approved? If he does like the front before the winter and in the spring does a side? Are you amenable to any sort of phasing in of his repainting?
We're willing to help anybody, as has been demonstrated, but he's got to come in here
Right.
first.
Right.
And maybe if you talk to central office, he'll come in.
So.
That's all we've wanted.
Right. Well, you know that if he doesn't come in, you're just going to deny it, and then he's going to be in a tough spot. So
Yeah.
it's in his best interest to come before the commission.
Well,
But this did start out as an enforcement issue.
you're right. Okay, well, let me open to the public. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor or against this application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Motion to continue
So moved
till,
for 2 weeks.
yeah,
December 7th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. That takes care of that. Maybe you notify him that I guess next time we might deny it, and then he's,
Yeah, you basically have no choice, and if he doesn't show up and work something out with the commission.
oh, all right.
Then he has to be closed for a couple days. Then he gets a cease and desist and has to close for a couple
I
days.
think the chain might want to know what's going on, though. They might move him a little faster. Okay. Site plan reviews. XSP 1713, 90 Parsons Road. Secretary take the roll.
Charles Durin,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott,
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber,
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
Rich Suzak is here.
Well, Commissioners DeGray and Gruber will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. The applicants will introduce themselves, please, and
I am Shelby Boschman from Woodard and Curran. I am just
You're going to have to use the portable mic if you're going to speak from, there's a portable mic in front of your computer there.
I think with your, the graphics and the booklet provided us, I've learned more about the water pollution control facility than I had previously. It's been an education.
You also have the Director of Public Works here, but he's trying to sit in the back of the room.
We are joined by Jonathan Bilms, Kevin Schlatt.
I think this is going to be an education for the people at home, too, so that's great.
We're also joined by Tom Schwartz, current project manager. Eddie Wadowski is to my right from Steffi, the architect.
That's not being picked up. You maybe use the, yeah, that's much better. Will it?
Okay, and as I said earlier, I am Shelby Boschman from Woodard and Curran. I'm the project engineer on the treatment plant upgrade. So this is the introduction of the treatment plant upgrade at 90 Parsons Road. The facility is located at 90 Parsons Road. It treats wastewater from 95% of the residents in Enfield. It discharges wastewater to the Connecticut River after it's treated through a 60-inch buried reinforced concrete pipe. The major site features include major site features are the existing operations building. It houses the administration staff, solids handling, and the on-site laboratory. It is a two-story building that is approximately 8,000 square feet per floor. The existing influent headworks area is currently outdoors, and it is a 20 by 30 foot outdoor area, which we will be enclosing. There are existing primary and secondary clarifiers. Those are the circular structures you see, 80 feet in diameter. The existing biological reactors are roughly the size of 2 Olympic swimming pools. That is the rectangle in the center. And there is an existing chlorine contact tank all the way to the left. That's the last stage of treatment before it's discharged to the river. So the majority of the equipment used in the treatment process has been in service for over 40 years, and it's reached the end of its service life. So the main part of this upgrade is mechanical. There was also a minor nitrogen removal upgrade completed in 2004, but this is the first major upgrade really since the treatment plant was constructed in '72. Okay. project timeline, the planning started in 2014 for the upgrade, and the sewer fees were implemented in 2014 so that funds were set aside specifically for this project and not taken out of the taxes. There was a $36 million referendum passed in 2015. The facilities plan was drafted in 2015 and continued into 2016. That's the plan that lays out all of the upgrades that are happening. The treatment plant design began in the fall of 2016, and the design is now complete. We're looking forward to bid shortly. We expect the construction to start in the spring of 2018 and to take 2 years to complete. The design was fast-tracked to secure funding. This is funded through the State Revolving Fund, Clean Water Funds. DEEP has been a large part of the design from facilities planning all the way through. They've attended meetings, provided guidance, provided comments on the plans, reviewed specifications at various stages. They've been very active through the process. The town is hoping to receive a 20% grant and a low-interest loan because of those state revolving funds. Okay. So this is the site plan of the project. Sheet 16 of the drawing set shows this sheet, and there's a lot going on this sheet, so I'll try to take some time with it. The treatment plant is currently zoned R33, single family. It's, of course, not the current use. The lot is a little over 7 acres. In gray, you will see the pavement shaded. Let's see. So the bright green trees are the ones that are new, and the lighter green trees are the ones that are current that are going to be protected. So the major site features here, as you see in red, there's 2 circles all the way to the right. Those are 2 gravity thickeners. One is in the original base bid for the contractors. If there's extra money, a second will be constructed for the project. So that is a new structure. I'll get more in detail on that. We have renderings that you'll see later, but those 2 structures are new. The second new area is the rectangle you see just below the 2 circles, the red rectangle. That's the headworks area. Currently, that area is open. Odors can be generated in that area. That's where all the wastewater comes into the plant and is screened. So we are proposing a building around it that will not only enclose the odors, but protect the equipment that's there. So as we move towards the left, from right to left, that's actually how flow moves through the treatment plant. So the light orange rectangle you see, that's the operations building. That's where solids are handled. Administration staff is there. Let's see, some of the process equipment is there. There's pumps and blowers in the basement. Some chemicals are there. As you continue to move left, there's 2 blue circles. Those are the primary clarifiers. The only changes there are mechanical. So there's mechanisms that rotate around to collect solids. Those are being swapped out. Relatively no visual change. As you continue left, the rectangle in the center is the aeration tanks. We are really just replacing equipment that is submerged. Very little change there, just a little bit of operational change for the most part, but visually, again, not much change. As you continue to the left, 4 blue circles. Those are secondary clarifiers, similar to the primary clarifiers, really just mechanisms being changed out. And the square in between those, that is the sludge pump station. There's a lot of mechanical happening there, and we'll get more into that with more visuals, but again, not much change. So other features shown on this are the new lights. They are shown in yellow. They're being replaced with LED lights for energy efficiency. The new lights are in purple. There's some new lighting near the handicap ramp in front of the operations building and at the gravity thickeners. The orange dash line is the zoning setback line. We've done the offset from the front sides and back. The clarifiers are current equipment. Those are non-conforming, but they're already there. The only piece that is new that just slightly goes over the line is a corner of the Headworks building towards the right. I think it's less than 5 feet that is actually over that setback line. That Headworks building is defined by the existing Headworks area. So we're really just covering something that's already there. So we can't really move that building in any direction. It's really being placed over existing equipment. So we didn't have much choice in that matter. Okay. So this view, we just wanted to orient you from the road where the new structures are going. So really, as you saw on the last slide, the new structures are the gravity thickeners and the Headworks, and this is the area where they will be going. We plan to protect these trees on Parsons Road to continue to block the view. Behind the trees, you might be able to see like a tan tank. That's a sludge storage tank that's not being used right now. That is going to be demolished. To the left of that, in the center of the photo, that's where one of the new gravity thickeners is proposed. And if you see the blue structure in the back there, that is being demolished. And to the left of that, the operations building is being constructed.
Down by the dog. Yeah, it's supposed to.
Okay, so this is the Headworks area. Again, this is where a new building is going to be constructed. So for the west elevation, it's to the left of the blue structure. You're going to have a new building. To the east elevation, that area is what's being covered. You see metal kind of poking out of the ground there. That is the screen that we are trying to protect with the building. The south elevation, that blue structure is being removed completely. There will be nothing going over that. And then the north elevation, you see the screen again, that will be covered by the Headworks building. Pass it along to Eddie.
Good evening. I'm Eddie Wadowski with Steffi and Bradley Architects, 1 Corporate Road in Enfield. So as Shelby mentioned, the primary reason for the enclosure of the Headworks building is really to provide a level of protection for the equipment that's out exposed to the elements now. It's also going to be instrumental in helping mitigate the odors. There's an odor management system that the building will be tied into. The materials for the building, you can see it's a fairly straightforward, it's really just a masonry box, a brick veneer, concrete block backup. The materials are chosen essentially because of their durability, the amount of moisture that's involved inside the building and the chemicals that are used. We really needed to minimize the amount of metals, but there's also a number of masonry structures immediately adjacent, so the idea is to try and have something that really kind of works with the existing architecture that's out there. Precast concrete plank roof. There's a skylight you see on the top, as well as on the end there's an overhead roll-up door that's basically to help facilitate the swap out of equipment at future date. There's also an enclosed electrical room inside the building that's being provided.
So this slide shows the rendering of the gravity thickeners that will be new. The top slide is the one that is in the base bid. If the bids come in low, we would like to construct 2 gravity thickeners. So it's a bid alternate to do the second, and this is being proposed to improve solids handling.
So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing on 2 of the other buildings on site. First is the operations building. We are doing a number of interior renovations on the project. I'm assuming that you probably are not incredibly interested in that. If you'd like me to go into it, I'd be more than happy to take you through it, but I figured I'd just kind of tell you about what we're doing on the outside of the building. The building is primarily precast concrete. The panels are in good shape, so we're really going to leave those alone. But as you can see, on 3 sides of the building, there's a fairly large expanse of curtain wall, which is in pretty terrible shape. The seals have failed. It's not thermally broken. The glass isn't insulated, so we're going to be replacing that entirely. We'll be going with a new aluminum storefront system where the windows are. Essentially, we're not reducing the amount of windows, but you can see that there's kind of 2 bands of actual vision glass. The rest of it is all opaque. We're going to be replacing that with solid wall with stucco to essentially approximate the color and texture of the existing building. Also, it gives us a chance, get some insulated windows, and we get a little bit of bang for the buck. An insulated wall should improve the energy efficiency of the building. With that, we're also re-roofing the building, new insulation on top, basically all new rooftop equipment for the building as well. The entrances on the front and rear, the main entrance, the concrete's in pretty terrible shape in terms of the steps, so we're going to be replacing that entirely. The existing canopy structure is going to be remaining, but we're going to put a new roof on it. There's also not accessibility at the main entrance. We're constructing a new accessible ramp that'll connect to the accessible parking spaces that Shelby mentioned before in the site plan. And then the loading dock is similarly also in pretty tough shape, so we're going to be taking that down and rebuilding it. There's also a ramp on that side that's not used that's going to be coming down, and we'll be recladding the canopy roof that goes over the loading dock. Similarly, on the sludge pump station, there's some work inside that's going on, but again, I'll focus on what we're doing on the outside there. For the most part, we're re-roofing and essentially trying to do a little bit of aesthetic upgrades, try and get rid of that lovely pink color of the foundation, and then also doing some new OSHA-compliant railings around the perimeter of the building. The precast concrete on this building is in fairly tough shape. There's a lot more moisture going on in this building, so the precast is starting to erode a little bit, and this is going to be budget dependent, depends on how we do in terms of numbers, but we're looking at trying to reclad the building with some new pre-finished aluminum paneling on the side of the building.
So this slide shows the erosion and sedimentation control. This is sheet 18 from the package. The green lines represent the wetlands delineation. So to give a little background on this site, we're basically in a bowl. Parsons Road is higher than the treatment plant. So that is to the west side. To the east, there's a railroad track that is also higher than the plant. And even to the south, there's also a raised area. To the north, it also starts to climb up. So the treatment plant, there is no sheet flow off of the site. Really, it's all exiting through the catch basins, which are indicated in red, and we will be protecting the catch basins during construction. In addition, where there's excavation, we will also be adding silt fence. So the gravity thickener that was mentioned earlier, we have protected that area with silt fence, as you see in red. There's also a construction entrance to the north of the site, which is to the right, that is near the wetlands. We will be protecting that construction entrance with hay bales and silt fence. And there's also going to be a little bit of excavation to the east side towards the bottom, to the right of the 2 circles that are the primary clarifiers. That's a new odor control unit that will sit outside. So there's a little excavation for that pad. So we've shown some hay bales and silt fence there. And then continuing to the south of the site, you'll also see more catch basin inlet protection. There is some work going on here, as you see at the bottom, some new grading This site could be prone to flooding from Beeman's Brook, which you can see all the way to the left, that green wetlands delineated area, that is Beeman's Brook. According to the FEMA floodplain mapping, we could flood through kind of a channel there, so we are actually building up that corner of the plant. In order for the contractor to gain access to this area of the plant, you'll see a new access road that the treatment plant staff will use later to maintain this, we are calling it a berm, this newly constructed berm. But in the meantime, during construction, there's a silt fence going in here, construction entrance, and we're also showing the staging areas in blue. So we plan to require the contractor to construct this berm before he's allowed to do any staging, because the staging shown at the treatment plant site is within the 100-year floodplain. So we're going to protect the site from the 100-year flood before the contractor is allowed to do any staging there. So it'll be one of the first things on the site.
It's on the next, it's down on the other ones.
So the end result of this project, wastewater will receive more reliable treatment, of course, through the upgrades. Enfield will be in compliance with their current and projected permits, and odors will be reduced. There's currently a notice of violation, but by enclosing the headworks and upgrading the odor control system, we will be reducing the odors. So improvements to the site include resiliency, landscaping, site lighting, handicap parking, and increased energy efficiency. Any questions?
Roger, were they required to go to wetlands because of this berm?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I went several months ago to wetlands. It was approved at wetlands. There is one issue that the Wetlands Commission will take up next Tuesday, which is Woodward and Curran has said that they're doing some additional work that they believe DEP has taken jurisdiction over, but nothing has been submitted that would demonstrate that that's actually the case. So we've asked, we're going to ask the Wetlands Commission on Tuesday whether or not they're comfortable with the modification on, from what their original wetlands permit is. But the short answer is it has been the wetlands. There are a couple of housekeeping details whenever you want me to talk about
No,
that.
we'll get the questions, then we'll do the other questions.
Just as a matter of curiosity, as the construction is going, is the plant still working this whole time?
Yes.
Sounds difficult.
We are actually very lucky with the way that the operations building is laid out. There is an incinerator that is not used in a good portion of the operations building.
I think it ever was.
So we'll be demolishing that incinerator, building new floors, and we'll be able to construct a lot of new equipment before we demolish the other equipment. So there's certainly going to be other areas where, you know, it's tough to swap out, but that is our luckiest area.
Mary?
I guess just a quick question. I live down near the plant, so I do have the smells in my neighborhood. So,
Downwind.
yes, exactly. And I guess, you know, just for the public's curiosity, you know, what kind of timeline are they looking for to finally have a little bit of relief from that type of stuff into our neighborhoods and everything like that? So I don't know where it is in the way
schedule.
the construction and stuff is going to occur.
So it is up to the contractor to develop a schedule for the project. We expect 2 years for construction, so that's worst case scenario. Yeah, I really can't say, but within the 2 years.
Questions? I have a couple. Now, I know there was a problem at one time because the downtown, some of the downtown storm sewers were involved. Are they been eliminated, or are they still receiving water from some of the old procedures of Thompsonville, downtown Thompsonville.
I think in the 80s was the major inflow and infiltration projects and targeting for the town to get rid of things like catch basins flowing into the sewer. We also did an inflow and infiltration study, so that's
Yeah, there
basically-
were roof leaders, I
Yep.
understand, that were going in too.
Yep, so inflow and infiltration study looks at groundwater entering things like broken pipe, storm events entering catch basins, or roof leaders and entering the system. We did not find very much of that, really.
Well, that's good. So that's been almost, well, it's cut down.
It's cut down a lot, yes.
Another concern was the animal shelter during construction. Keeping the animals in there, and if so, what protection from, let's say, the vehicles and the annoyance? I'm sure they'll be annoyed or concerned if they're out in the outside cages, probably having a turmoil with all the activities going on. Will they keep it in operation, or?
We assumed that they would remain in operation, but we have not started communication with the animal shelter.
It's because you have the trucks going by there and you have the berm being built.
Yep. It is although it might look substantial, it is 2.5 feet being added to that area, 2.5 feet of fill.
But I was wondering, during the construction, though, what's the effect on the animals?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess the good part is there isn't much demolition really planned for this, so, I wouldn't think there's a lot of activities that are going to be extremely noisy. I mean, you're constructing a new structure, but, steel is essentially swinging a crane and putting up brick is, guys laying bricks. It's not
No,
particularly.
right, no, but you will be for a while, because you have the additional road going in there for temporarily usage. So you'll have vehicles going by there.
You will have vehicle
I
traffic,
mean,
yes,
even
absolutely.
now, you go by there, and the dogs, if they're out in the pens, are barking at each other. I mean, just normal dogs with activity going on around them are going to cause a problem. I just didn't know how much of a disturbance it would be for them. The second one, and I hadn't seen anything, was the health department, or what controls do you have? Because you have a lot, you mentioned some materials being kept in one of the buildings, but you have a chlorine storage and a chlorination unit there. What protections do you have, let's say, in case there's a problem?
Are you saying if there was a spill?
Right, a
that an
spill or a
example?
leak or whatever
Yep.
happens.
So chlorine tanks are kept in a secondary contact area. So there's actually, I think it's a 2.5-foot wall around the tanks and the pumps. So if there was a leak in a tank, there's a sump area and there's enough chemical containment to contain a tank if the full tank were to let go. So it does not, there's no floor drain that will drain to the treatment plant. It's not going to come out and go to the storm drainage. It'll be contained.
There's no alarms or anything in case there is a leak?
I honestly cannot remember if we have an alarm in that area, but we might.
You might.
Kevin,
I could get back to
yes,
you
there is.
and confirm.
Kevin, back.
Is there? We do? Yes.
You do,
Kevin has-
okay.
We do.
Okay, that's all. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Now, the only thing I understand we have to do is decide on a color for the sludge building. Is that our selection, or, that's what I read anyway.
Yeah, if it was, so that's an alternate. If there's enough extra money, it would be refaced.
Oh, I see, okay.
So we're not sure that will happen.
I mean, ideally, if we do have the money for it, I'm assuming we're probably going to go with one of their standard colors that's closest to the existing color of the building. most of the manufacturers have a certain number of, standard colors that they have. And we'd be
Yeah,
picking from one of those.
That's just what the two of us had read, that's all, and some of the others maybe had. Well, we can say if and when, then we can pick a color.
You're gonna match the colors that are there.
Yeah, it's earth tone, we can let it go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably some kind of earth tone.
Yeah. Any questions further from nothing? Anything you can add there, Roger?
Yeah, first I'd like to acknowledge Woodward and Curran and the Department of Public Works. They both reached out early on in this project, and it was great to to be involved along the way and have checkpoints, and we appreciated that. There are a couple of things here, and that's why I stepped out in the hall with Jonathan, the Director of Public Works, on it. The presentation tonight indicates that there's an encroachment of a building into a side yard. This commission cannot approve an encroachment of a building into a side yard. That would require a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So in discussion with Jonathan, we would have to put a condition of approval on this, that building will be moved to comply with the setback, and they'd have to find a way to move the building 5.5 feet. We did. I thought we had that worked out early on, so that there were no zoning issues. But that's not a discretionary matter. A building has to be in compliance with your zoning regulations, or on a site plan, or you got to go to ZBA and seek a variance, and you can't approve something subject to a variance. So if we put, a condition, say 8A in there, that all buildings must comply with zoning setbacks, then they would have to revise it such that it did, and it would allow the project to move forward. The other thing is a lot of the drawings say not for construction, and this commission's protocol is that you don't approve drawings that say not for construction, so the final plans would also have to be submitted to say, with that removed. So with those two additional things, again, I'd like to thank Department of Public Works and Woodward and Curran for all their collaboration going forward. It's a great project for the town.
Yes, it is. It's very much, and it's interesting, but it is that I don't believe that the sludge burner was ever used, because I think it was just finished and never turned on. Okay, I'll open it to public.
Actually, I was curious if they're gonna have a maintenance program so we don't have to wait 40 years to do it again. Are you gonna have are they planning on having a planned program, or? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Funding.
Okay,
Well, maybe the council will continue it.
yeah.
Okay. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Last call to speak in favor or against this application. I know they'll be rerunning this P&Z hearing, but I think somehow if that could be replayed or put out so that the public can see where their money's going and what's going on down there, and give them a little bit of idea of what the plant does and the process involved in it, because a lot of them, they just let it goes down the drain and that's it, and they don't realize that there's a cost involved, and the environment is involved, and I just, since you got it together, it would be nice just to put it out there on the TV.
Town webpage.
So, yeah. So I'm ready to close then? All right, I'll close XSP 1713. Did you get his wording now? Okay.
I would like to mention that if you do access the treatment plant website, Kevin actually does a tour of the plant, and you can access slides that do have information about the project.
Right. Yeah, they do. Well, that would be something maybe even to put in, if you have standard time of tours or something that you put in the paper that you do, and I'm sure you'll have people go down there. It'd be something you could do, and just put in a time and do it maybe once a month or something like that would be nice.
I think they're by
I did
appointment.
take a tour, and I think once would be enough at that time. At least.
You can do a virtual tour with the video.
For a lifetime.
But it's quite an education going through the charts. It really was. You learned a lot. Okay.
Just go to Mary's house.
Okay, Mary, yeah, I know.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the approval of the resolution for XSP 17-13, dated November 16th, 2017, by the Planning Department, with 25 conditions and an additional 2 conditions. Number 8A, all buildings must comply with building setbacks, and 8B, remove not for construction from the site plans.
Second.
Stamped.
And what?
And have them stamped, and not stamped.
Oh, and not stamped. Is that, yeah,
And not stamped.
and have them stamped.
And have them stamped, sorry, and not stamped.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion. Oh, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous?
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was a good presentation, too, by the way. Thank you for that. Okay. You ready to continue, or?
The only other thing I'd mention to the commission is if you have this book, when you get to the zoning map, put a big X through it, because it didn't matter because it had the right zoning for the property, but the zoning map that's in this book is not correct.
Okay. 100 Print Shop Road. I guess they've been waiting. SPR 1733. Secretary take the roll and read the, Secretary take the roll. Don't have one.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
Rich Suzak is here.
Commissioners DeGray and Gruber will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Now, can the light, so he's sitting in the dark, I can't see his face.
Actually,
What's,
Do we need to re-engage the source for the video?
no, it's okay.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I don't know why the lights are out, probably for the screens.
you would
Thank
definitely
you.
have known it. Had big chunks of beef in it.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Dan Immig with LRC Group out of Cromwell, Connecticut. I'm joined tonight by Pat Peltier, Wynn Stanley, he's the owner applicant. We're here tonight, we have what we think is a fairly straightforward modification to the site plan. The building is an existing office building and distribution center, and so the plan in front of you this evening is to make some modifications to that and add some additional flexibility to their operation. It's going to take me all of about 1 minute to go through these changes. The total property is about 46 acres. The only area we're dealing with, and we have an area of a disturbance of about an acre, maybe a little less, is the back left corner. That'd be the northwest corner of the property. What I have here is the proposed conditions, and in that back left corner, currently there's a grassed area back here that will be replaced by 7 tractor trailer parking spaces. There's an existing loading dock here. Just to the right of that, they'll add 2 more loading docks. So they'll be removing a small portion of the building and adding 2 loading docks to that. And then finally, over here, this is really just some pavement modifications. They're moving a curb line. Those 3 things in total encompass the entire project. About a month ago, we were here for Wetlands Commission. We did receive approval for that. We are putting some stormwater infrastructure in just to handle, meet the town requirements up to the 100-year storm. There's an existing catch basin here. That underground detention is just to the right, just to the left of that area. Then it'll discharge through this existing pipe back into the wetlands area. The only other thing really to cover is potentially erosion sediment control. Obviously, we'll be providing inlet protection, silt sacks on all the inlets, and then providing silt fence along this back curb as they're disturbing this grassed area. That's really the only area that has potential to generate any sediment. So that's really the project in and of itself. If you have any questions for me, certainly be happy to answer any questions.
You know, I have one. In terms of the parking that you're proposing for the left-hand corner there, is that just on grade in terms of it's going to be sloped, or are you going to try to make it level with the loading dock area?
It's level. It's not going to be a loading dock that.
Well, I mean the parking, because.
Oh yeah, just the parking. Sorry.
Yeah, it's parking, because I don't know that I've noticed that there's any gradations on your plan that indicates, you know, what the grades are doing.
Yeah, no, it's just flat.
Well, right now it's sloping, right? Because it's high on extreme left-hand side, and as you go towards the right, away from the corner of the building, it's sloping downward towards the loading dock.
Yeah, I mean we're basically matching existing grade.
So so that's what I'm saying. Is the parking will be on a slope. It won't be at the -4 foot level below finished floor.
Correct. It'll. Yes, what you're saying is correct.
All right, yeah. So you're not going to dig a big trench in there, and you're just going to slowly, gradually allow trucks to park however they want on it's going to be on an incline, more or less.
Yeah, keep in mind, I mean, the slope of that area, so as they pull in and back in, that rear of the truck will come up a little bit towards the back of the building. So there's a grade difference of about, looks like 3 feet from the edge of the drive aisle to the face of the building.
Right.
So you're right. So the back truck will come up about 3 feet.
Right. All right. That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I was looking for the entrance road here. I was looking for
One more dumb question. In terms of, you know, the corner of the building that you're going to knock out, you know, so you're going to sort of reinforce the existing roof and build a new exterior wall and everything like that? Or are you going to leave the roof in place and, you know, allow trucks to park under a canopy?
Yeah, I was looking for Sabowski's.
No, there won't be a canopy. Pat, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I did too. That's what I was looking for.
Portion of the building that's being removed. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Pat Pelletier with Win Stanley Construction. I'm with the owner. The portion of the building that we're proposed to be demolished is really a standalone structure. It has its own superstructure that will be removed. The portion of the building that remains has its own foundation and steel structure that will not be touched. So
Okay,
there's
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, if you had, you know, sort of mentioned that, you know, because I'm over there, how could he just cut off a corner of the building and allow everything to fall down? So, all right, thank you.
Put a rock under it.
That was not the plan.
You're up in there, wait a minute. See if I can get-
It's gotta be over here to the right.
Yeah, that's wondering how far.
It's off a print shop, so there's Sabowski. So it's
Yeah,
gotta be-
okay, so, yeah, I just didn't want to make sure.
Quite a ways
Yeah, all
away.
right, yeah.
I did see him on there.
I did, that's why, yeah, that's why I wanted to. You have the retention chambers on there, I don't see any, and are they marked on other plans at the maintenance and inspection of those chambers?
That was a comment that Wetlands made to us, and we have added then. We made another, I think the submissions may have crossed, but we made a submission first week in November, I believe. Those are the plans. I don't know what the date of the plans you have in front of you are, but
Well,
my stamp. Yeah, so the,
It's right here, Charlie.
probably the detail sheet. You want me to, can I open this up?
Detail sheet.
DS1.
Probably the very last sheet.
DS1. Yeah. I know, the chamber, the inspection chart,
Yeah, I looked for it already.
Mary found it.
Inspection and maintenance right here,
okay.
the bottom one.
Oh, no wonder I couldn't see it, it's so small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. No,
We're trying to save paper, apparently.
I
So,
guess.
Save a tree.
Either that or printing ink. Okay. Any questions, further questions?
It's pretty straightforward again.
And you only use Print Shop Road, you don't use Sabluski to get into that area? No? All right. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, it's,
Is there anybody?
it's a kid you're so used to doing it, it's an SPR. Okay. Yes.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, they were approved by the Wetlands Commission. They have not actually been issued their wetland permit because they haven't submitted their final paperwork or plans. So the hope was that if you made changes tonight, they could change plans once, have all of the wetland conditions on it, have the P&Z conditions on it, file those plans.
Yeah, but we can't approve it without,
Well, the commission did approve it. They just haven't submitted their revised plans in order for us to file the wetland permit on the land records. So the commission did approve it. It was approved.
Okay.
And I think we gave you that resolution.
okay. Yep. Yeah, that's the one I asked for, okay.
And I was just sort of reminding the applicant that we need two sets of plans.
Yes.
One, and you can put wetlands and P&Z on the same set of maps if you'd like, and we'll use them for both.
But now that's a deal,
Saving paper again.
right.
Hey, Roger, I have a question. You have under site-specific conditions, the applicant will submit the site roadway circulation plan as listed in the index of drawings. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're looking for with regard to that.
Where is that, Commissioner?
Number 8.
Oh, yeah, on their index of drawings, they refer to a site roadway circulation plan. They didn't submit it, and so either they can take the roadway circulation plan off their index, or they can submit that. It was incomplete. You know, if you look at the index on the front of their drawings, it says they got a roadway circulation plan. They were saving paper and they didn't submit it.
Save too much paper.
That's fine. I just wanted to clarify just for why it was in there, so all of us knew and understood what it was that you were looking for.
I think the
got it.
commission would like to see, and it would be good for our
Yes.
records if we actually had that
Actually had
circulation
it,
plan.
even though it's
So
referenced,
I
yes.
think they should submit it.
We will submit it.
Oh, okay.
Sort of Prince's
Anything further, are you all set?
signs.
Any further questions from the commission? Okay, then, let me close SPR 1733.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the approval of the resolution for SPR 1733 dated, let's see here, Should have a date on it.
No, it doesn't. Put today's date.
16.
November 16th, 2017, by the Planning Department,
Make
with,
sure you date this memo. Okay.
with the following 25 conditions that are listed here.
Second.
He's got it.
Motion's made and seconded. You have any problems with the conditions?
No.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous, 7-0-0.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for waiting so long.
Keep saving that paper.
Okay. All right, let's see. Other business, correspondence. Any correspondence from the commissioners? You have, in the back, correspondence that was sent to you by quarterly newsletter from the Connecticut Federation of Planning. They're very interesting.
Oh, yeah, we starred in that.
I think so. I was wondering. I didn't want to say
Yeah, I saw that too.
that first article. And so it is something to be careful because, as I say, I'm a member of several organizations, and
This one here.
I just, like the American Legion comes in for things,
Oh,
I
you
just excuse myself.
Oh,
You're better off.
Judge was wrong.
Okay. The other thing in here, I've talked to Roger, because there's been a lot of additions and to different commissions that deal with the drawings. And I asked him to do a simple seminar for the land use boards on reading them, or at least reading simple symbols and elevations and so forth, and where they are and so forth. So, so Roger has agreed to set that up and do that, but when we get our moving around of the commissions because of the election and appointments that are coming up,
Is Rich going to present that?
no, oh, yeah. Yeah, well,
You could.
we would, yeah, but Roger, I talked to Roger about it, and there is one in here, a workshop for $175. Well, we don't need that, we got Roger, and we got 3 volunteers somewhere in the building that could do that. And then you have the other is zoning practice.
Yeah, I didn't understand any of that.
Well, it's digital, which we aren't into, but I'm sure
It's a good technical article, but I
the
don't
younger
understand
people
it.
understand the digital rather than,
We do get everything that is filed with the commission, we get a digital copy of.
yeah. I bet you read the request at the end of her resolutions, it all requires digital copies. And that's been since Roger's been here, I guess, or maybe it started earlier.
Well, it was before I got here, but they were, it was sort of hit and miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, pretty complex which system you use, that's.
Right, and there is an ordinance currently that Enfield adopted like 20 years ago that specifies the format that you want, and we've asked IT to comment on that because it would appear that what was state-of-the-art 20 years ago was not state-of-the-art today, so.
Probably not.
So maybe we'll have Commissioner Sweezak comment on that as well.
Well, again, get those volunteers and we can get some more work done.
And then maybe you can get that signature of his down electronically.
I don't know.
If you haven't seen
electronics
Commissioner
is all-
Sweezak's signature, it's truly a work of art.
Okay. Commissioners' correspondence, anything?
I do have something. Crex night lights, when they're playing football, are right into that neighborhood off of Weymouth Road. I was driving into Weymouth Drive. It's blinding.
Is this still going on?
Yep.
All right,
and we've asked
we
them-
were notified of that. We did reach out to both the principal and the central office, and we assured that it would be corrected, so we'll,
Well, that was a field they weren't even supposed to have, never
Yeah,
mind.
so-
the
But I
rest
think
of
what
it.
they did is they said last year, okay, fine, and then, I don't know if we have to remind them every year.
I think what happens is, you have a new superintendent of the CREC, and you have a new principal, and, there's no institutional memory that says you
Think
can't
they-
shine lights into the neighborhood.
Yeah. But they're bright,
Yeah.
so.
Because they built it without asking
So
us
they,
anyways,
yeah,
what
they,
difference?
that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, they
They assured me that they
they're
weren't gonna
also
play
requesting
football.
their
There
they're
wasn't gonna
also
be a football field.
requesting their bond back, and so we've asked them for the as-built. So
A couple of years.
at some point they'll be before you for their bond back. So I am sure those lights will be corrected before they appear here.
I hope so, because it is disturbing the neighbors, so.
Okay, we're up to, oh, yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring to the attention, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but near the corner of, what's the name of that street? Villa Street and Freshwater Boulevard, there's a homeless encampment that is growing in that area, in the wooded area in that corner. Just today I saw yet another structure that is, I can't say built because it's not being built, but, put together. And I was wondering if that's within the purview of this commission or of interest to anyone
There's,
here.
Probably the purview of the
social
police
work,
department. but-
the police,
Yeah, we'll take it under advisement and work with the appropriate departments to find out what's going on, seeing if the folks that are living there can be referred appropriately.
okay,
Also,
anyone else?
Yeah, that site you straightened out before over off by South George Washington and Middle Road and Hazard Avenue, that triangle, now has an abandoned truck in it and slab lumber stacked in there. They got all the skids out, though.
And the tall teepee full of trees that was there, the teepee of trees that we started with.
I don't know if I noticed that.
It was, well, yeah, when they cut down those trees, they were in the form of almost like a teepee.
Oh, I didn't-
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the stuff
All
on the
right.
ground. Old pickup truck there with a big old sign on it about some company and no plates on it. Rick might just want to peek at it a little bit.
Roger, there's another one that bothers me. I don't know if it's ours or not, but reading in the paper or on TV, I guess they had about dead trees falling and injuring people and so forth. In back of the donut shop or coffee shop on Enfield Street, there's a lot, I don't know, somebody trimmed all the branches off, and these dead stumps have been up there for a long time. And I'm wondering, they should be pretty well rotted by now, whose property it's on. It's next to the American Legion is a donut shop.
The Dunkin' Donuts on Enfield Street?
Yeah,
in the
there's a
back
lot
there.
of tall, just trees. It looks like they've been topped and the branches off.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself, Mr. Chairman. Well,
And I think there's a safety hazard there. I don't know why it was done, and whoever did it just left them there. And it's not just one or two, there's several of them. Oh, it's good. Well, somebody else has noticed it, good. I just saw that recently, and the concern around the state for all these dead trees. And somebody ought to take care of them before they start falling.
The power company keeps saying it's the tree's fault we have power
Oh,
failures.
yes. And then they trim.
Right to the ground.
Okay, I guess anything else?
the only thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is a couple of months back, the Wetlands Commission approved a development beside and behind Country Diner on Hazard Avenue. And they have not completed their wetlands, what the conditions of the wetlands put on the property, which includes filing a conservation easement over a portion of the property. So there has not been an application filed with this commission. Mr. Chamorro, a abutting property owner, has filed a notice of intervention, and which was served on the chair and myself and the town clerk's office. And an attorney is now calling, wanting to participate in public hearings and so forth. So I'm taking the time tonight to let everybody know there is not an application. We don't have anything. And so the question I asked the town attorney is, can you intervene in an application that doesn't exist? Because there isn't one at the present time. So if there is one filed at some point, we'll certainly make them aware of it.
Who's the attorney representing it? Is it Shamura?
I just started calling today. I haven't had a chance to return their call yet. But so there was a letter that was sent purportedly to Chairman Doran at 820 Enfield Street from the Commissioner of Agriculture, the state of Connecticut. And that letter has been circulated to other entities in the town of Enfield. That letter was never mailed to Chairman Doran at the town of Enfield. And so I know I was asked as your staff director, why didn't I share that letter with folks? And the answer is that letter was never made available. I called Mr. Chamorro and I said, Mr. Chamorro, you're circulating a letter that purports to be addressed to Chairman Doran. And Chairman Doran didn't receive the letter. I'm the staff person. I didn't receive the letter. Where did you get the letter? And he said, well, the commissioner mailed it to me. So,
What commissioner?
Hmm?
What commissioner mailed it to him?
the state commissioner of agriculture. So
that's the one I called you about.
that is an interesting protocol, and I just wanted to make that clear because there is a letter circulating in this town from the Commissioner of Agriculture that says it went to Chairman Doran at 820 Enfield Street from the Commissioner of Agriculture. No such letter has been received. If it was received, we would have circulated it to the commission.
That's the one I called you about. because
Right, you
I-
called me because people were asking why we hadn't shared it, and you asked me if I had it, and I asked you if you had it.
Haven't shared it with you yet.
No, I haven't seen it.
No, your name's on it.
I would ask what's in the letter, but I guess nobody knows.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Anything further? All right, then let's go on to administration approvals.
Charlie, you wanted to know about
Oh.
the October 13th.
Oh, yes, October 13th. I never,
You never got any information.
Commissioner Salazar saw me at a meeting and showed me this reception or the letter or email from the town attorney
To go to
inviting
court.
us to go to court, and I never received it. Well, I have trouble with mine anyhow, so as I always say, if you really want me, you better call me because
Yeah, you sent out a spam email from your computer. I don't think it was you, but so whoever that person sent it out may be getting your email now.
what?
Yeah, there was,
When you had that
some of us got an email from you that wasn't from you. You know, somebody hijacks your email and sends stuff out in your
Is
name.
that right?
Well, that can certainly happen, but it's typically not done on an individual basis, so.
a recipient on there
Of what?
of that email from the town attorney.
Oh,
So somehow maybe it went in your spam or something.
they could have.
So,
I would check with your email provider and suggest that they check the settings, because they might have got it so that anything coming back to you goes to them.
Yeah.
At least they didn't say
still
you.
wants the information, though.
At least
all
they
right.
didn't
No,
say.
I
At least
did.
they
I
didn't
got
say
it.
he was stranded in India and needed money to get home.
No, I didn't. It's all right. I wouldn't be able to go anyhow because I don't like to leave town too far with Ann. I don't know.
Well, we'll speak for you.
Yeah, I know. Well, you did last time too. No, you did all right.
Just tell Sarah what to say. She knows how to talk.
Sarah, yeah, right.
She's a good speaker.
We're all set. Okay.
So moving right along, the two administrative approvals are folks who want to go into empty space in the mall, and the mall is requesting that this commission approve them. They've submitted narratives and a site plan, been circulated, and nobody has any objection to them, so it seemed like they would be appropriate for a resolution with an administrative approval. So the 90 Elm Street did fill out an administrative approval application on the 1732 for gold calendars. The gentleman for 90 Elm Street for the virtual reality game shop came in, picked up the application, and hasn't actually filed it, but I fully expect it to be coming in. So the first one, there is an application with a fee. The second one isn't an application and a fee, but assuming that we get one and a fee, I would ask that you approve the Director of Planning to administratively approve both SBR 1732 and SBR 1734. It's empty space in the mall, and both are items that would provide vibrant use of those spaces.
The youth in town have always looked for a place to go to. The mall, and actually, they used to be in the mall with different places.
There's some
And
game shops.
yeah, they had some game shops there before. And these are two things that would interest younger groups, and I guess with the mall taking them on, it sounds like a good activity for them, a good place for them.
As long as they pay the rent.
May we authorize approval of an application that hasn't been received yet?
Well, you could authorize him, as he says.
You can
when it's
authorize me
received.
to approve it if it comes in as
If it's
what I've
received.
described to you.
I make a motion that we give authorization for administrative approval for SPR 1732 and SPR 1734 for, what is it? Go
Minis-
calendar and game retailer and a virtual reality game shop to go into 90 Elm Street.
Second.
With the appropriate agencies.
With the
involved.
appropriate applications.
Well, and agencies, other agencies
And
involved.
sign-offs and agency approvals.
She
Second.
already seconded
Okay,
it.
motion's
again.
made and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
I have a question,
Okay.
Roger, about that gas thing they wanted to put in on Steel Road, was it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mary said later.
those are,
Oh, yeah, no. Shaker Heights, Roger's asking me about Shaker Heights. That went out today, and you all got notification. See, it worked today. I could get my mail. They couldn't get their bond apparently, and we did give them, if you remember, a break. And even that deadline they couldn't meet, so actually, they don't exist anymore as far as that project goes. And they would have to come back in.
Yeah, subsequent to this commission extending and giving them to an additional days that they said they would have, they didn't meet that deadline and instead went directly to the building department and tried to file building permits. They actually did file building permits, but the building department gave them back to them. And then within the last couple of days, they contacted the director of public works and wanted him to meet them on the site to negotiate the amount of the bond. And I had informed Jonathan and John Cabibbo that essentially the project doesn't exist until they come back to again to this commission, because you extended the time frame and they didn't meet it, and so that's where they are. And you know, they haven't filed their other bonds. We discussed that the last time. So you know, the interesting situation is that they could have split the project up into 3 phases. You remember it was 5 phases when it was approved originally.
Yep.
And essentially phase 1 and 2, or phase 1 and most of phase 2 has been built. And so they could have had phase 1, 2, and 3 of their new approval. And they said to this commission, we don't want to do it in phases. We'd like to be able to build one over here and one over there. So because of that, they have a larger expanse of area that would be covered under a site restoration bond. So they really, you know, they position themselves in that situation. So if they want to have a lesser site restoration bond, the only way to achieve that would be to come back and break the project up into phases and be under that restriction of, you know, build a phase, complete a phase, and then get that bond back and then post a bond for the next one. So that's basically where it stands. So based upon, you know, my reviewing with Public Works where it was, they've declined to meet with them further. But the bond estimate provided by Mr. Cabibbo was consistent with all other bonds for as many years as John has been here and been doing it, consistent with the bonds that were estimated for Mayfield Place. And so there's no reason why that a different bond amount would be calculated for this project. So hopefully, you know, they can figure out something, but they will have to come back at this point to this commission.
The thing is, we also had given them a break on the roads finishing, if you recall, because he didn't want to do this.
We worked out a situation where they could build all the units except for the last 25, I think, without completing the top coating of the road.
Right. And so for some reason, that sounds like that would be his best deal, is to come in and do it in sections.
Or post the bond as calculated by the engineering department in accordance with policies and procedures of the town of Enfield that have been in place for more than 20 years.
Anything further to come before the board? You all want to sit here for the rest of the night?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
That was quick. I know, I was jumping on that one.
Mary, we got a full 10 minutes early.
I know